Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is our weekly webinar from the Platform Trial. I'm Sabrina Paganoni, and I'm speaking from the Healing EMG Center at Mass General. And tonight, I want to welcome everyone in the audience, and especially those of you who have participated in regimens A and B. We recently shared what we define as a treatment allocation, which means we shared information to regimen A and regimen B participants about whether they received active or placebo during the placebo-controlled portion of the trial. And we invited them to join us today to see if they have any questions. I know sites have been in contact with participants, and we also wanted to provide this forum for people to ask questions if they have questions. So tonight I want to kind of recap our overall study design and also when we can share treatment information with participants. This is actually a question that we get a lot on this webinar. You know, when can we tell participants whether they were on active or placebo? And I want to explain when that's possible. And in fact, it has happened for participants of regimens A and B. So thank you to those of you who have participated in any regimen, and in particular, welcome regimen A and B participants tonight. And feel free to type questions in the Q&A box if I can be helpful with any questions about your participation in the trial. Next slide. So we're very excited to bring the trial to a network of 78 sites across the US. This is one of the patient-centered features of the trial. And tonight I want to review some of the features that we added thanks to patients' input that are patient-centered. And one of them is the availability of the same trial in multiple geographic locations. So this means that whether you live in New York or Texas or Idaho, everyone has the same opportunities in terms of types of drugs and study approach. Some of our sites are large academic centers, others are private practices. We have centers located in major cities and also some sites located in rural areas. When we started the trial, so specifically when we were enrolling in regimens A and B, our network was a network of 54 sites. They were still geographically distributed, but we really wanted to do more and increase our reach. And that's why we added sites. And the sites that were added were based on requests from patients and investigators and hospitals that wanted to join. So we were able to rapidly grow from 54 sites to 78 sites in just a couple of years. And it's been fantastic. So it's great that we can provide opportunities to many people. And in fact, I want to thank you for joining this webinar from wherever you are across the country. And many of you have participated again at different sites, very different hospitals and settings. We also have a few international participants, especially from Canada and Latin America. So thank you to all of you who have participated. Next slide. So regardless of where you participate or which regimen you participate in, we share the same common protocol and the same infrastructure. So I want to explain the basic feature that's different between the platform trial and a standalone trial. We use the same processes and approach to gain operational and scientific efficiencies. So using the same protocol, the master protocol, we added a number of regimens. Each regimen is a drug and corresponding placebo. So if you can click a few times, you can see how we grew from 2020 to 2023. We opened in 2020 with regimens A, B, and C, and then we continue to add 1 or 2 regimens every year. Currently, we are enrolling for regimens F and G, while some of the previous regimens, and specifically A and B that we are really focusing on today, have been completed. Next slide, next click. So this basically shows our numbers in a nutshell. Under the same protocol, this is a phase 2/3 protocol. Under the same IRB and central governance, we have been testing 7 regimens, which basically means 7 drugs, at a network of up to 78 sites, and we have enrolled over 1,000 participants. So really big numbers. This is really a community collaboration, and we're really grateful to everyone who's participating and contributing, including our enrolling sites of the NEALS Consortium. Next slide. So far, as I said, we have completed a few regimens. In terms of the regimens that we have open for enrollment right now, I just want to spend a second because a couple of people contacted me asking to provide enrollment updates today, since we didn't do it last week because of the holidays. So in terms of the enrollment updates for the regimens that we are enrolling for right now, regimens F and G, these are the enrollment updates. So there is a process for entering the trial. So people first need to be assessed for eligibility to make sure it's safe for them to be part of the trial. That's the first step. Those are the people that are consented to the overall master protocol, the overarching protocol. And then they need to be assigned to one of the currently enrolling regimens, F or G. And then ultimately they'll, once all the screening procedures have been completed, they can start receiving study drug. So far, between F and G, we have been starting to dispense study drug to 346 participants. And so we are definitely making progress. We still have spots available. So I do want to say that while we're excited that, we're making progress, we also still need new participants. So if you know anyone who may be interested in participating, please send them to one of the centers. And Catherine, who is here today, who's our patient navigator, is always willing and able to connect you to the appropriate site. Next slide. So I want to explain how we test each regimen, and keep in mind that the strategy is the same for every regimen. So the objective of every regimen is to provide an efficient go, no-go decision. So we want to rapidly screen drugs in or out, because this is a phase 2/3 trial. So we expect that there's going to be a subsequent trial if there are positive signals of efficacy in the platform trial. So we want to say, yes, this drug works, move on to the next step, or no, this drug doesn't work, and so we should stop drug development. And why is that important? That's important because we have many drugs in development for ALS, and so it would just not be feasible to test all of them in very large trials. So we want to have this trial that's set up to be efficient, to serve as a screening tool. So for each trial, for each regimen, as I said, there is a screening period. So first, people come in, they are screened for eligibility. Basically, there's a few procedures. For example, we ask questions about your medical history, past medical history, medications, and we take some measurements, including safety labs, making sure it's safe for you to participate. Then each participant is assigned to a regimen, and then the regimen starts for that person. So within each regimen, randomization is 3-to-1, and I want to explain what this means. 3-to-1 means for every 4 people who enter the trial, 3 people will receive active drug from the beginning, and only 1 will receive placebo. So there's 75% chances of getting active drug from the get-go, and only 25% chances of getting placebo. Active or placebo continues for 24 weeks, which is basically 6 months. This particular randomization ratio is a feature of the platform trial. It would not be possible in a standalone trial, and that's another important patient-centered feature of the platform trial. And I will explain later why this is possible, but essentially in standalone trials, we have to give placebo to more people. Instead, in a platform trial, we can minimize the number of people who are on placebo because we're using a shared infrastructure, as I will explain in a second. Another patient-centered feature that I want to describe here is that at the end of the 6 months of the placebo-controlled period, participants who complete those 6 months can get access to active treatment as part of the active treatment extension, which we used to call open label extension, but it's the same concept. Why is this important? Again, it's a patient-centered feature so that we give people the opportunity to try active drug after their generous efforts and participation in the placebo-controlled period of the trial. Now, people on this webinar have asked us, when, let's say, an individual participant has been asking, many individual participants have asked us, when can I know if I was taking active or placebo? And I want to clarify that we are absolutely 100% committed to telling everyone whether they received active drug or placebo. However, we cannot do it right away. And there are a few reasons for that, including the fact that this is part of the FDA guidance. In order not to affect the scientific results of the trial, we can only tell if people were on active or placebo when we are done with the particular regimen, not only the placebo control period, but also the active treatment extension. And only after we have locked the database. Locking the database means that we basically do all the data cleaning and analysis, etc., and we are sure that there's not going to be any more changes to the data. And so we just lock it. Nobody will ever be able to make any changes to the data. That's very important for scientific integrity and for complying with FDA regulations. And so at that point, once we lock the database of both the placebo control period and the active treatment extension period, we can tell individual participants whether they were on active or placebo at the beginning of their experience, when they were in the placebo control period. Keep in mind that everyone who completes that period can also go on active treatment later on as part of the extension. So this process has been completed for regimens A and B, and that's why we have been able to release these treatment assignments to participants in A and B. Regimen C will follow very soon, and then the other regimens will follow at the appropriate times. If you can click one more time. So for every regimen, we collect a number of endpoints, including endpoints that are recognized by the FDA, such as valid endpoints for registration of a new drug, such as the functional rating scale called ALSFRS-R and survival. We also collect a number of important safety endpoints, as well as secondary endpoints, such as respiratory function and muscle strength. An important component of our trial is also the collection of exploratory endpoints, including important biomarkers. These may or may not be used for regulatory approvals, but they are very important for us to learn more about ALS and contribute to science so that we can design even better trials in the future and contribute to scientific knowledge so that we can make progress together in fighting ALS. Next slide. So far, as a snapshot here, we have included 7 regimens, as I said earlier. The first 2, the ones for which we were able to release treatment assignments, are A and B. Unfortunately, they received a no-go decision, meaning that we found as part of that trial of those 2 regimens that they were not effective. The next 2 regimens, C and D, had positive signals, so much so that they graduated to a phase 3 trial, which will be done separately. And just for those of you who are following us in terms of current regimens, regimen E, we are now in the data analysis portion of the trial, and so we hope to learn the results very soon. Regimens F and G, as I said earlier, are still enrolling, and again, we're enrolling really well, but we have still room to go. We still have spots for people who are interested. Next slide. Now, I wanted to go back to the topic of patient centricity and why a platform trial allows us to learn more about ALS and contribute to science and contribute to progress in ALS more than a standalone trial. But there's a couple of reasons that I want to explain them now. So first of all, it's patient-centered because we can, reduce the placebo component, and we have, an open-label extension, etc. But I want to explain why we can do this sharing of the placebo. The graph essentially shows, in a way, from a data perspective, how each regimen contributes placebo data to a shared placebo group that continues to grow as we add more regimens. Now, this shared placebo group is interesting because we can learn a lot from people who were on placebo during the placebo control trial, or that period, those 6 months that were the initial participation. And if you can click one more time, and people have been asking us, why can you use the same shared placebo to test multiple drugs, A, B, C, D, etc.? Well, that's because the key eligibility criteria, or the target population, the group of people that participates in the trial, remains constant. And the key eligibility criteria are listed here. Without going into the details, that's very important. Obviously, if we must enroll the same population so that we can continue to add to the shared placebo. Now, in the future, we may decide to to kind of restart a new placebo group based on differences in standard of care, if something new happens, etc. So we may do that. We may actually be very close to that. But for now, just thinking about sort of the past experience, the initial version of the platform trial, we have been able to continue to accrue shared placebo data up to now. Next slide. And the placebo data is teaching us a lot, and I want to specifically focus on the opportunity of leveraging the placebo data to learn more about ALS biomarkers, genetic testing, neurofilaments, and digital apps that can be used to learn more about how to best monitor ALS and how to best design trials. And I want to say this because I really want people to understand that even if they were on placebo during the first 6 months, they're still contributing to research as of today. So we're still using the data to learn more about biomarkers, and actually even to compare to the drugs that we are enrolling, we are testing right now. So participation in the platform trial allows each individual participant, whether they are on active or placebo, to contribute to ALS research, not only as part of participation in the particular regimen, but their participation is essentially multiplied because it can also help to learn more about ALS in general, biomarkers, genetics, digital outcomes, and the shared placebo can also help with the testing and the analysis of future drugs, because so far we have continued to use the growing shared placebo even to test the drugs that we're testing right now. So again, I really want to emphasize how participation in the trial helps not just one drug, not just testing one drug, but helps us make progress in a collaborative way, because we are using this shared concept, shared infrastructure to make progress across the board, testing more drugs and also learning about ALS in general. Next slide. And so really, I want to thank you for your partnership, your participation. Clearly, we could not be doing this trial without the ALS community. And I really want to emphasize the critical role that every participant has and continues to have, whether somebody was on active drug or placebo. Every data point counts and is multiplied in this collaborative trial to provide learnings to the entire field. So thank you for making this possible. Next slide. And I want to also leave you with the most important information, which is how to reach Catherine, Allison, how to continue to register for these webinars, how to sign up for the ALS link, which is our newsletter. We want to continue to hear from you. We want to help you get enrolled in the trial if you're interested in doing so. And also we want to partner with you in terms of sharing information, communication. We are revamping the website, so we would love your feedback. We definitely want to continue to provide information that's valuable. We also recognize that many of you have been following us for a long time. And so many of you are very familiar with the trial itself. But we always have new people because people are diagnosed with ALS every day. And so especially for people who are new, we want to hear from you and we want to learn what you would like to, what you would like us to cover during these webinars. Is there any specific topic, especially if you're new, that you would like us to cover in more detail so that everyone can have access to the same amount of information? Now, we will not be here on December 7th because we're all going to be traveling for the International MND Conference. I will say this is the biggest ALS conference that brings together all international researchers on ALS. It's been virtual for the last few years. This is the first time that we are meeting again in person, but there are virtual options. In fact, it is possible to register. I think the registration is still open. To register to attend some of the sessions virtually. So if you're interested, please feel free to do so. And for those of you who are new, I'm pleased to let you know that we are going to be dedicating the second Thursday, so the second week of every month, this webinar will be dedicated to expanded access. Many of you have asked us to provide information about how to get into an expanded access program, what's expanded access, how does it work, how is it different from the trial. And so we're going to have a series of webinars, again, once a month, to cover all things expanded access. And so we had Dr. Babu join us for the first for the inaugural series of this webinar, inaugural session of this webinar series, and then Dr. Barry will be here in a couple of weeks, so don't miss those. We have recordings for every session in case you want to go back and listen to the previous webinars. So we will also skip the last 2 weeks of the year, but we'll certainly be back the first week of 2024. And I cannot believe we're already at 2024 almost. So thank you for that. And then I think we can move on to your questions. So great questions about regimen A and B. So essentially, what was the result? And so the question is, were they futile? Were they not effective? Is it because the product didn't help ALS progression? Or what was it? So it was actually that the product, the study drug, did not have a beneficial effect on ALS progression. So this was very unfortunate, but that's basically the result that we had. The only silver lining here is that we were able to test these drugs and learn that they're not effective using fewer patients and putting fewer people on placebo than it would have otherwise required without a platform trial. So we really did it quickly. As you may remember, we launched in the middle of the pandemic when pretty much all research was stopped, at least for a few months. And nevertheless, we were really encouraged by the participation from the ALS community. We were able to enroll very quickly. We amended the protocol to be able to do telemedicine and remote assessments to make the trial possible during the pandemic. Unfortunately, the drugs didn't work. So that's why they were stopped. And the situation is different actually for the next 2 regimens, C and D. They did have some signals of efficacy, and so they are moving on to the next trial. But these would not make sense basically for A and B because they were not effective. Yeah. So there's a question about our target numbers for regimens F and G. As a reminder, regimens F and G are those that we are enrolling for right now. So we are testing 2 dosages for F and only 1 dose for G. That's why the sample size of the 2 is slightly different. So our target enrollment is 300 people for F and 240 people for G. So slightly different, again, just because of the 2 dosages. And so we are making progress with both. And so I believe we have started study drug in 346 people so far. So we still have some room to go, obviously to reach the total goal of 540, I believe. And so after that, again, once we reach it, we will be able to start the follow-up, which will allow us to test the drug, to learn if the drugs are effective or not. And I also want to mention that we recently have our industry partner for regimen G, Denali, join us on this webinar, and that's recorded. So if you're interested in learning more about the science about regimens F and G, we have all that material recorded, and we'll definitely do more live presentations in 2024 about the science for both F and G. So thank you for your interest, and we'll definitely make sure to bring the researchers back to tell us more about these drugs. This is good, and I think these are the questions that we had today. Thank you, Catherine, for posting all the information. And again, we are really committed to posting everything essentially in real time. As soon as we learn about results or updates, we post them, and we have a lot of material on our website, and we're trying to update and revamp the website as we speak. So if you have any suggestions for our website, if there's additional content you would like to see, please send the information to us. So there's a question, do you ask participants after the trials if they thought that they got the drug or placebo? Yes, we do actually. We have something called an exit questionnaire, and that's important to see if there were features of the drug, perhaps side effects or other features that would allow participants to be able to tell if they were on active or placebo. I will say that so far, again, we haven't had any significant results in terms of any unblinding. So it's important that we monitor this, though. Absolutely, we do this as standard practice. Yeah. Excellent. So thank you so much for your participation, and I hope to see you back in 2 weeks, and obviously we'll learn more in Basel, Switzerland, at the International ALS Conference. Hopefully there will be lots of research news next week, so stay tuned if you get a chance to follow. They're very active on social media, so in addition to registering and attending the actual conference, you can also follow updates on social media. I'll post some updates on my Twitter account as well if you want to follow me, and I'll try to repost information from the International ALS Symposium. So thank you so much, and again, I hope to see you in a couple of weeks.